He hadn't smiled, truly smiled, in years, not since his wife passed away, not since his empire grew so big it swallowed every trace of who he used to be. Michael Grant was the kind of man people respected but never really knew, the millionaire CEO who moved like a storm through meetings, numbers, and deadlines, too busy, too important, too cold. He didn't believe in love anymore. He barely believed in kindness, until one rainy Friday night, when a stranger showed up for a blind date he never wanted and ended up changing everything. Before we begin, if you love true, heart-touching stories that remind us of the power of kindness and second chances, make sure to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Welcome to your channel name, where every story warms the heart and makes you believe in good again. Michael Grant was 45 years old, the CEO of a major tech company in New York City. He owned 3 houses, drove the latest Tesla, and could buy anything he wanted except peace. After losing his wife, Claire, to cancer 6 years earlier, something inside him froze. He stopped laughing. He stopped calling his old friends, and he poured everything into work. His employees respected him, sure, but they also feared him. He wasn't cruel, but he was cold. Every word measured. Every emotion buried under the armor of success. So when his assistant, Mark, tried to convince him to go on a blind date, Michael almost laughed. "Mark, I build companies, not relationships," he said flatly. But Mark didn't back down. "Boss, just one evening. You don't even have to like her. Just talk to someone who's not holding a business contract." After 2 weeks of pestering, Michael finally agreed to fine. One date. 1 hour. Then we never speak of this again. The restaurant was small, warm lights, brick walls, and soft jazz playing in the background. Michael arrived early, as usual. He sat in the corner booth, scrolling through emails on his phone, checking his watch every minute. Then she walked in. Her name was Emily Carson. She wasn't what he expected. No fancy dress, no designer bag. Just a simple navy coat, her hair still damp from the rain. She smiled as she approached. "You must be Michael," she said, offering her hand. He nodded, a bit taken aback by how calm and genuine she seemed. They sat down. He ordered his usual steak, medium rare, with mineral water. She ordered soup and a side of fries, not wine. Not a salad. Fries. He couldn't help but notice how different she was. Most people in his circle talked about stocks, cars, or travel. But Emily started talking about people. She was a kindergarten teacher. She spent her weekends volunteering at a senior center, and when she laughed, it wasn't polite, it was loud and real. At first, Michael kept his answers short. He wasn't used to small talk that wasn't about business, but something about her disarmed him. She asked questions that no one else did. "Do you ever get lonely?" she asked softly. He froze. That wasn't a question people asked Michael Grant, but she looked at him like she genuinely wanted to know. After a long pause, he said quietly, "Every day." As the dinner went on, he found himself saying things he hadn't said in years, stories about his childhood, about how his wife used to leave notes in his briefcase, about how he still couldn't bring himself to delete her number from his phone. Emily listened without interrupting, her eyes kind and full of empathy. When he apologized for talking too much, she smiled. "Don't apologize for being human," she said. "That's what connects us." When the bill came, Michael reached for it automatically. But Emily stopped him. "Let me get dessert," she insisted. "I'm not letting you pay for everything." He tried to protest. But she ordered 2 slices of chocolate cake anyway, and when it arrived, she said, "Here's to new beginnings, even if they start with a blind date you didn't want." Michael actually laughed out, a real laugh, the kind he hadn't felt since before his wife got sick. When the night ended, they walked outside. It was still raining lightly, and Emily pulled out a tiny, broken umbrella. Without thinking, Michael took off his jacket and held it over both of them. They stood under the streetlight, laughing as cars splashed water by their feet. Then she said something he'd never forget. "You know, people see CEOs and think they've got it all. But sometimes, the richest people are the loneliest." He looked at her for a long moment and said softly, "Maybe you're right." She smiled. "Then maybe it's time to start living again." That night, something in Michael shifted. He went home and sat in silence, replaying the evening in his head. For the first time in years, he didn't feel empty. He felt alive. Over the next few weeks, they met again and again, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for walks in Central Park. She told him about her students, how one little boy brought her a wilted flower every morning just because it made her smile. Michael found himself listening more than talking. He started noticing little things again: sunsets, music, laughter. He even began greeting his employees with a smile, something that made the entire office whisper, "What happened to the boss?" One morning, he called Mark into his office. "Mark, cancel the next 3 meetings," he said. Mark blinked. "Sir?" Michael smiled. I'm taking the team to lunch. My treat. No agenda. It was a small gesture, but for his staff, it was shocking. The cold CEO who never stopped working was finally showing kindness, and it all began because of one woman who reminded him what being human felt like. But life, as always, had its twists. A few months later, Emily stopped returning his calls for a while. When they finally met again, she looked pale and tired. I didn't want to tell you until I knew for sure, she said softly. I've been diagnosed with lupus. It's manageable, but some days are hard. Michael's heart sank. But she smiled through it. I'm okay, she said. I just didn't want you to feel sorry for me. He reached across the table and held her hand. I don't feel sorry for you, he said. I feel lucky I met you. From that day on, he was there for her through every treatment, every hard day, every sleepless night. The man who once hid behind power and money now spent his evenings making soup, sitting beside her in hospital waiting rooms, holding her hand through the storm, and through it all, she never stopped smiling. She taught him that kindness isn't about grand gestures, it's about being present. 2 years later, they got married in a small garden behind the same restaurant where they first met. It wasn't lavish. Just close friends, family, and laughter. When he gave his toast, Michael looked at Emily and said, You showed me that the best investment I ever made was in kindness today. Michael still runs his company, but differently. Every year, he gives scholarships to kids from underprivileged schools. His employees say he's not just a boss anymore, he's a mentor, a friend, and if you ask him how it all changed, he'll just smile and say, One rainy night, a woman ordered fries and reminded me how to love again. Kindness didn't just save his heart, it gave him back his life, because in the end, it's not money, titles, or success that define us, it's how we treat people when we think we've got nothing left to give. So maybe, just maybe, we all have the power to change someone's life, with a single act of kindness. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with someone who might need a little hope today. And if you haven't already, subscribe to your channel name for more stories that remind us all that kindness still matters.